I recently had a death in the family that I was the executor, if you will, and my question is, what are the minimum requirements of things to file following that with the courthouse or the newspaper and such?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, executor. Listen, what Don's talking about is that he had someone, probably a family member, pass away, and that family member had a will, and in that will, it obviously named Don as an executor. So when you're executor, you're basically in charge of the estate. So one of the first things you have to do as executor, you get what's called letters testamentary. Okay, that kind of gives you the authority of law to kind of act in the name of the deceased person. So that's a critical piece. First, the next critical piece is you have to determine the heirs at law. You have to go to court, and the court has to certify these are the heirs of the deceased person. And to do that, you obviously you have to name, the children. That's common. But interestingly, you have to put that in the paper. You have to actually put a notice in the paper saying if you an unknown heir, if you claim to be an heir of such and such, you have to come to the courthouse on such and such a day and claim it. So what happens is you're going to have to go to the courthouse. The judge will call the case, and he'll say, are there any people here that claim to be an unknown heir of so and so? And if no one answers, then the judge will kind of certify who the heirs are. So and then the next big step after that, you have to do notice to creditors. You have to also put the known creditors on notice that someone has died, and then you have to publish in the paper for that as well, giving creditors an opportunity to what's called file a claim in the estate. Once that, and you actually have 90 days to do that. Once that is done, then you can really close the estate. Then you can move the kind of case to kind of getting it done and distribute any, proceeds, distribute any real estate, things like that. But those are kind of the big steps in handling an estate.
Matt, and we're tight on time here.
Yeah.
Is this something Don can do on his own, or does he need an attorney for this, or this is something that you can do on your own, but there are some steps, obviously.
Yeah, you really kind of need to work with an attorney, Don, because everything I kind of told you, I gave you kind of a light version of it.
Right.
There's specific language that you have to have in each one of those notices, and they have to be set for a specific time. And is it conceivable that you can do it? Of course it is. I'm sure, but at the same time, it's going to be a lot harder if you try to do it on your own.
Okay.
There are a lot of lawyers that do this kind of work,
sure.
and it's they really they're a good guide in this kind of process. And so I would highly recommend you kind of get help of a lawyer for sure.
Gotcha. And Don, probably not one of the more expensive things. This should be pretty routine costs on this, right?
Absolutely. Okay. Assuming it's not a complicated estate, there's not a lot of real estate, and there's not a lot of fighting amongst the heirs. I mean, really several $1,000s should be enough for the estate attorney to kind of get this kind of all the way in, depending upon complexity.
Don, great first question to start
the
new year. Really do appreciate it. Sorry for your loss.
Yep.
Of course.